All right.
So introduce yourself.
I'm Father Steve Schaitberger, priest of the Episcopal Church, retired. I was canon missioner for northern Minnesota, and I've lived in Brainerd since 1980. That's still my home. I'm retired now, and I've just finished writing a book about a priest who was here in the Gull Lake area. Enmagabo is his name. The name can translate in English, stands before his people. And he is very instrumental in my being a priest. I went to Cass Lake Camp as a ninth grader.
Hold on, please. I was getting stung.
Yep.
All right. Could you start with that sentence again?
I was a camper in ninth grade at Cass Lake Episcopal Camp, where most of the kids were Ojibwe. All the priests were Ojibwe. And they talked about Enmagabo with great reverence around the campfire. I got friendly with Ojibwe kids. They were my support group during those formative years, and I ended up becoming a priest. And then I came to Brainerd in 1980, and Enmagabo was the priest at Gull Lake at St. Columba Mission. The mission was founded in 1852 by Enmagabo and James Lloyd Brick, and it was on Gull Lake. It was Holinaday's band, and they were invited by Holinaday to come to teach the 4 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, and religion. And there was a mission, and there was a church building. And that site, I think you're going to do some work at that site, and I hope you can find some good artifacts that will support that site. I have photos and artwork of that site that are in a little book I edited. And here is that. So if you want to take a picture of the site, that one is at Crow Wing. But there's the original church and mission are there. And it's important because the only Indian work that the Episcopal Church did on the national level was here at Gull Lake. So from 1852 to 1868, when they moved to White Earth, probably till the early 1870s, White Earth and the Gull Lake Band were the focus of the National Episcopal Church here in this area. Brainerd was the first church when the railroad came in 1871, but the first church was 1852 that Enmagabo founded upon invitation of Holinaday. He wanted his band to learn English, and he was open to farming and trying to find another economic means other than the fur trapping, because he is a visionary man and knew that wouldn't last. And so the next thing that got me interested is the Crow Wing. In the Civil War, the priest at Crow Wing went to be a chaplain for the North, and Enmagabo was in charge of the church at Crow Wing. And it was, I think, named St. John's Episcopal Church. There's some other alternatives that are there too, but my notes say St. John's Episcopal Church. And I have have saved the cornerstone from that church. And when the Indians were removed in 1868 to White Earth, that town became a ghost town, and things were just taken. Even tombstones were taken, some by people who were they were relatives of who had been buried, and they just took them to White Earth. But we don't have any records of why and how that happened. We just know it happened.
Is that the Catholic cemetery? Episcopal,
no, that's the Episcopal. Well, what I know is the Episcopal cemetery. I would guess the Catholic cemetery
was poached as well. Stones.
You don't see hardly any stones there now.
Yeah. We found photos of stones that used to be there.
Yes.
By the way, we could talk about that on
Good.
camera.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I also think Enmagabo served there until he moved in 1868. in the War of 1862, what I like to refer to as the Indian uprising in Minnesota, I don't like to use the Dakota War, even though the Dakota people had the 90% majority of the conflict. There were Ojibwe in the north who also rebelled, and Hole in a Day was one of them for the Gull Lake Band. And Emagabo says that Hole in a Day and Little Crow met at Fort Snelling in the summer of 1862, and they agreed to attack the regional forts, Fort Ridgely in the south and Fort Ripley in the north, on the dark of the moon of August. And they fulfilled their promise to each other and attacked on the full moon of August. And some of the historians locally said, well, that was just by luck, only because probably white people couldn't coordinate that way. I mean, they had no idea. I also think they didn't want to scare an already scared population by saying that the North was uprising too. And it wasn't exactly true. It was the Gull Lake Band that was led by Hole in the Day that tried to attack the fort, but Emagabo and Charlotte, his wife, and some of their kids, and chiefs from Mille Lacs were opposed to using violence. They were just as mad as everybody else at the government at how they were being treated, but they didn't want to use violent means to find remedy. They wanted diplomacy. And when Hole in the Day discovered that the fort had been warned and that settlers had sought safety at the fort, he did not attack. But two of Emagabo's kids died of exposure. One was in his teens and one was an infant. Probably exposure meant germs. And when they went to Fort Ripley, they probably caught some kind of either childhood disease or flu, or so we don't know for sure, but we do know that they're buried at Crow Wing. And so we have an uprising of 1862 because of the way they were treated. I was pleased to be able to finish this book with the help of Vern Pickering. He's been very helpful in writing. I've done over 40 years of research, and I'm open to any questions you might have. Did I leave anything out?
Hold on 1 second. I'm going to just adjust my arm before my hand falls off.
Okay.
Just get a little more comfortable here.
Sure.
I think you provided history and update or contribution we haven't heard from others,
Okay.
Stephen, so I appreciate that.
Yep.
I do think it was thorough, so I don't have any questions, and I know
Can
this
you
history.
tell me, maybe, I've been studying the Red Lake Mission
Yes.
from the 1850s, started at Oberlin College, of which I'm an alum.
Good.
And I'm doing a research project on two Ojibwe that traveled from Minnesota to Oberlin during that time, one of whom, a woman who was taken into the home of the missionary's family in Red Lake, but traveled with a different missionary back to Oberlin, and she passed away in Ohio. And I'm trying to find out more about her story and to figure out where her remains lie.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, so I'm very interested in the story and how these intersect. And I'm curious how, and I'm going to pronounce his name properly.
Emagabo.
Emagabo, how he became a priest, and a little bit about that origin story there.
All right. Well, it starts in Peterborough, Ontario, the reservation of Rice Lake, or the community of Rice Lake, an Ojibwe community. Actually, Adawa. He was the band of Ojibwe that were traders, and they had a program of fosterage, and they would foster a child to somebody they wanted to be involved with, and then kind of trade kids, and they'd raise them as their own, and that way they could learn the dialect. Even though they had the same language, dialects changed from village to village, and so and they developed a commerce and trade contacts. Well, Emagabo was fostered to an Anglican priest and his family, and that lasted a summer. Got taught reading and writing, and then he went home because he was homesick. Then he was fostered to a Methodist clergyman who saw his promise as well, and he became a catechist. He left Rice Lake with the Methodist minister. He became a catechist in 1837. He went to seminary in Jacksonville, Illinois. He became a Methodist minister, was ordained. Then he married Charlotte, Iron Sky Woman, who was part of the Fond du Lac band. Her father was a spotted elk. No, yeah.
Eagle?
I think spotted elk. And he was the brother of Hole in the Day 1. And the two of them, St. Croix River by, I think it's spotted elk. And then the other was Hole in the Day, who did the Mississippi River. And they really were influential. And so Emagabo and Hole in the Day 2 were considered brothers by marriage. They didn't have a brother-in-law type of organization or structure. Well, Charlotte went to a trading post. The trader made a racial slur, and Emagabo held him down while Charlotte beat the snuff out of him. And he was brought up on charges of conduct unbecoming a Methodist minister. They defrocked him. He went down to Fort Snelling, wondering what he was going to do, and he met up with Ezekiel Gear and James Lloyd Breck, and they said, "Welcome here. We're the kind of church that welcomes these kind of behavior." And so he became an Episcopalian, and he became friends with James Lloyd Breck, and they started the mission together up here at Gull Lake. And it was spotted tail,
Okay.
not spotted elk, spotted tail. Then the mission, as I said, was the focus of all those years of the entire Episcopal Church, and they put a lot of money into mission buildings, and those were all destroyed in the uprising of 1862.
I was wondering.
Yeah, and
You can break it if you want.
yeah.
Well, no, Jeremy's calling me for a summary.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm being summoned.
being
Thank you
called?
so much.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to read your book.
I also know a lot about Red Lake.
Oh,
So
I want to talk to you sometime.
Okay. Yeah, we can do it.